The Atlanta Braves are undefeated in the Alex Verdugo era, taking down the Minnesota Twins 4-3 for their first back-to-back wins of the season. Let's break the whole thing down right here on the Braves Postcast.
This is the Braves Postcast, your instant game reaction for the Atlanta Braves. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into the Braves Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. He's Jake Mastroianni of Locked On Braves. At Shortstop Ball on X is where you find him and all of his fantastic work. And Jake, I am excited to get to talk about back-to-back wins with you. This is it's the Alex Verdugo era. It's a new era in Atlanta. And they are 2-0. They're going to finish the season without losing any other games and go to the World Series, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the way that this works, I guess. But it is nice to talk about back-to-back wins. Haven't been able to do it in a long time. So great to do it. And big game for Alex Verdugo. I mean, I know 0 for 4 or 0 for 5 in his first night, but to come back tonight, get on base, have a big game there. Great for Alex Verdugo.
Yeah, he goes 4 for 5, 2 doubles, scores 2 runs, and crucially, the turning point of the game is the bottom of the 6th inning, and he gets the RBI single that is the go-ahead run for the Braves. It was a little bit, you touched on him going 0 for 5 yesterday, and I chuckled a little bit when you saw, I think 3 of his balls were hard hit balls over 100 miles an hour, all caught for outs, and we're like, it's welcome to the Atlanta Braves, right? But we see Alex Verdugo tonight. He's not swinging and missing a lot. He's putting the ball in play. He's playing good enough defense in left field. Is he a good enough leadoff hitter for you until Ronald Acuna Jr. gets back?
I mean, like I said the other day, I don't think there is that perfect leadoff hitter for the Braves. Verdugo is a guy that he's going to put the ball in play, and that's really his best skill set. So, in terms of, having somebody at least in the leadoff spot that is going to give you a good at bat and put the ball in play, I think he certainly fills that role, but he's not going to hit for power. He doesn't have a lot of speed, so he doesn't do kind of those other things that you really want your leadoff hitter to do. Right. But like I said, they don't really have that guy, and I think Verdugo is okay. It may not be, the ideal choice, but what the Braves have, he just might be for this team where they currently are.
Yeah, and MLB.com's Mark Bowman had the stat early in this game. Verdugo singled and doubled in his first 2 at-bats, and Bowman pointed out that those 2 hits were one more hit than the Braves had gotten in the previous 5 games from whoever was the leadoff hitter. Leadoff hitters were 1 for 21 going into tonight's game, and Verdugo obviously goes 4 for 5 in this one. It felt like a pretty good night overall for the offense, right? 12 hits. Marcell Ozuna goes 2 for 4. Matt Olson had a night where you probably would have talked about him being the offensive MVP if not for what Verdugo did. Olson goes 2 for 3, 2 RBI, also draws a walk. The big thing for me on Matt Olson, he didn't strike out at all. So, good night for the offense in general. And I felt like it was everybody but Ozzie Albies and Sean Murphy got a hit. So, you absolutely take a 12-hit night from your offense, although I will point out, because I feel like I do this a lot, 4 runs on 12 hits. Not really. You go 4 for 10 with runners in scoring position. You do get those hits. That's something you haven't always done. But it felt like you could have had a few more runs at times than you actually did.
Yeah, but I'll be honest, Lindsay, I was really happy with this performance from the offense tonight. I thought they did a great job of continually applying pressure throughout the game. Yeah, they didn't get that big hit. They had some chances early. Sean Murphy, I think, struck out looking in the first inning with runners on base. Michael Harris had a pretty awful at bat with bases loaded. So, I mean, it wasn't perfect. But I was looking for, after what you saw in the 8th inning last night, and I talked about it, I said it's a half inning. I'm not going to let that completely change my mind. But I thought tonight was a step in the right direction for the offense. I just felt like there were a lot more good at bats in this game than there were bad at bats. And there still were some bad ones in here, but I was really encouraged with what I saw from the offense tonight. Yeah, it's just 4 runs, but they gave themselves a lot of chances. They made the other team work. And, eventually they are going to get those big home runs. Kelnik, just missing one. Matt Olson just missing one off the wall. So, I mean, they still, I thought did a great job offensively, just having some more consistent good at bats up and down the lineup. Nick Allen at the bottom of the lineup, getting on base, doing some things. So I really like what I saw from the offense tonight.
Yeah. And on the note of Kelnik almost getting one, this came up a lot on social media. It's in the comments on the live stream on YouTube right now. Kelnik, he's not pimping the single, right? But he's not running very hard out of the box. He really gets going after he rounds first base, ends up getting thrown out at second. And a lot of the immediate reaction everybody's had is that Jared Kelnik should have been pulled from the game for that, for not hustling down the line. But before we started recording, you had a pretty nuanced observation that we can't just blanket be mad at Kelnik for what we saw on the broadcast, right?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen a good view of the entire field on the hit, so I don't know exactly where Nick Allen was. Was he holding up to see if the right fielder caught it or not, and Kelnik was kind of trailing him? I think either way, Kelnik has to be at second base. If that is the situation and Nick Allen's holding up, then you're standing right behind Nick Allen. If it hits the wall, it's second and third. So I still think he should have got there, but maybe building in a little bit of an excuse for him. My issue maybe you didn't bust it out of the box. Don't get thrown out at second, because that did end up costing the Braves a run as they got a hit later in the game. It's like you made one mistake and then you doubled down on it and made another mistake.
Yeah. If you're already at first base and you haven't started hitting your full sprint, maybe just turn around and go back to first. It's embarrassing to have a ball off the wall be a single, but it's more embarrassing to, like your point, to double down on the mistakes, get thrown out at second, and end up impacting the inning there. So all in all, good outing for the offense. Happy with what they did. In just a second, I want to get to the pitching. We saw another short start from Chris Sale. We'll break that down, plus some impressive work from the bullpen. We'll do that next, right here on the Braves Postcast. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. And with Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with the top freelance talent across multiple industries: IT, AI, web developing, marketing, honestly, whatever else you can think of that involves tech, right? So whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Okay, Jake, so frustratingly in this, we saw, I'm going to call it the continuation of a trend that we've seen early this year. Chris Sale goes 4 1/3 innings, 6 hits, 2 runs allowed, 3 walks to 8 strikeouts, takes 98 pitches to get through 4 1/3. Bases loaded in the 5th when he leaves. Rafael Montero, who's looked fantastic, we're going to get to him, comes in, 2 strikeouts, cleans it up. It feels like Chris Sale's been doing this a lot this year. A lot of his outings have felt like they have been shorter outings. And I don't know if he's just the spring ramp up wasn't enough or what's going on. Are you at the point yet where you're concerned about Chris Sale?
Yeah, I think you absolutely have to be when you're talking about a guy who basically hadn't pitched a lot for 3-4 years. He comes back last year, throws a ton of innings, has a back issue at the end of it. He's 36 years old. Velocity's been down at times this year. I know it was fine early in this outing, but he certainly seemed to get worn out in that 5th inning here. Credit the Twins a little bit, and that they fouled off a ton of pitches really against Chris Sale in this one, and that had to be frustrating for him. But yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say I'm not at all concerned about a 36-year-old that threw a lot of innings last year after he hadn't in a while, and he hasn't quite looked himself. 18 foul balls tonight, 10 foul balls on 32 four-seamers that he threw. So they did a good job fouling that off, and it's easier to do when you're not throwing 96, 97, which they seem to be fouling those pitches off too. But it's a bit concerning. I think overall the stuff, as I keep saying, looks okay. It does seem to be more location-wise. I mean, 3 walks for him tonight. He had 3 walks in Tampa the other day. It looked like maybe he was pitching around Jeffers. He walked him twice, so maybe he just liked the matchup on deck better. But I mean, certainly it's not what you're hoping for out of the guy that just won the Cy Young for you. And you really need the pitching with the way the offense has been struggling. You haven't got it from Chris Sale in a month now.
Yeah, he touched 97.2, so that was kind of normal. The average was 94.5, so that felt kind of normal. But to your point, in the 5th inning, he really started to run out of gas. He threw 3 fastballs that barely broke 90, were under 91. He actually had a couple changeups in this game that were harder than those 5th inning fastballs. So I don't quite know. Obviously, we're not going to speculate on what's going on, but you need more from Chris Sale. And I do think he's going to say that, right? In the post game, we're going to get all the quotes later from Justin Toscano, David O'Brien, and Mark Bowman. He's going to say that he has to do more. But the good news in this one is that the Braves pitching staff, the bullpen, absolutely picks him up. Rafael Montero cleans up that inning, comes back out and gets an out in the 6th. Pierce Johnson finishes that inning. You've got Daisy Hernandez, you've got Dylan Lee, and then Raisel Iglesias. They combine for 1 hit and 1 walk for the entire rest of the game. It feels like you may not have strictly defined roles. This is always your 7th inning guy. This is always your 8th inning guy. But the bullpen is a lot better than a lot of Braves fans maybe thought it was going to be early in the year.
I think the bullpen has been maybe one of the better surprises. It was our biggest concern, at least my biggest concern coming into the season. And I think they've done a pretty good job. And a lot's been asked of them because Chris Sale's not going deep in the games. Grant Holmes hadn't for the most part. A lot of other guys in the rotation haven't been going deep in the games. So yeah. I mean, it's so they've had to throw a lot of innings, and I think they've done a really good job. I think we actually saw a little bit of defined roles here tonight once you got to that 7th inning and took the lead, and it was Daysbel, Lee, and Iggy. I think those are your 7, 8, 9 guys right now. Pierce Johnson's been used in some lower leverage situations. I know he came in tonight to get out of an inning there. But we talked about Verdugo, the turning point in the game, obviously the go-ahead hit. But I thought maybe the biggest moment in the game was Rafael Montero coming in there with bases loaded, 1 out, and getting out of the jam. I mean, that was the moment that had me on the edge of my seat, where it felt like the game was in the balance. So those are some huge pitches from him, and he's been great since coming over.
Yeah, it's switching over to a splitter from his typical changeup did a lot of really great work for him as far as letting him pitch the way that he wanted to. I broke the whole thing down on the newsletter on BravesToday.com about how he was throwing the changeup in a lot of different situations and he struggled with it. And now that he's got this splitter, he can go back to how he wants to use it. And the greatest part of this here is Houston sent you a bunch of money to cover this contract. You're paying like $3 million for the year for Rafael Montero. And it may end up being one of the better acquisitions of the year for Atlanta if he pitches the way that he did today.
I think he's already been worth $3 million. He's pitched in some big spots already. He got the extra inning win too. So I mean, he's already been that. But I want to note real quick before we move on though, because we talked about this yesterday. We saw it again though with Snicker. He got out of that jam and then he brought him back out for the next inning. Unfortunately, walked the leadoff batter. But that's something. And again, when Sale only goes 4 1/3 and your pitchers aren't going deep, you have to do that. But he continues to kind of try to get a little bit more out of these relievers.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting for me now to see what happens tomorrow with the pen. Raisel Iglesias has pitched now twice. Dylan Lee threw 25 pitches. Daysbel was at 16. What's on deck tomorrow? You really need a deeper start out of Grant Holmes. And then if you have a save situation, do you throw Iglesias a 3rd straight day? Do you go with a different option? I'm really curious to see how tomorrow's game ends up.
Hopefully a lot of runs for the Braves offense because I think you're right. It may not be a lot of people available coming out of that bullpen. I mean, I know Iggy will do it, but you really hate to ask that of him. You had to use, like I said, I think what are your top 3 relievers right now in Daysbel and Lee? That at bat from Christian Vazquez might still be going on. But I mean, it's just, you're gonna need more out of Grant Holmes. You're gonna need more out of your starters going forward. But this may be a game where you're hoping your offense really goes to work. But it's a tough customer and Joe Ryan on the mound.
I was about to say Joe Ryan's 1-1 with a 2.45 ERA this year. So really tough matchup there. Obviously, Grant Holmes 1-1, 3.78 ERA. We saw him go incredibly deep in that last outing that he had. The second longest start by a Braves starter this year. We need another outing like that from Grant Holmes. That game's at 1:35 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, series finale. Braves going for the sweep. Standard broadcast, FanDuel Sports South and Southeast. Jake, I believe you're out tomorrow for the Postcast. I'll be here with you on Easter Sunday to break
happy
down.
Easter, everybody.
Yeah, happy Easter, everybody. We'll break down all of the action with you. If you're listening on audio, do us a favor. Leave us a 5-star review. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to both Locked On Braves and Locked On Sports Atlanta. Hit the notification bell so you know when we go live to break down every single one of these wins so we can talk about a sweep tomorrow. There's a lot of jinx here. We're talking about it, guys. We're manifesting this happening. Until next time, this has been the Braves Postcast.